Oh, damn. I mean, this is what I'm talking about right here. This is what you live for. Donald Trump is running scared. I never thought I'd be able to say that. I never thought I'd be able to say that. This man calls out politicians like as easily as he drinks a glass of orange juice or something. Running scared from Kamala Harris. And Kamala Harris is coming at him. I'm like, damn. Oh, my Lord. The former president looks scared to debate. Never thought I'd say that. Stephen A. Smith Show in the house. Let's roll. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the latest edition of the Stephen A. Smith Show, coming at you as I love to do at the very least 3 days a week over the digital airways of YouTube and, of course, iHeartRadio. As always, got to show my love and appreciation to my followers and subscribers. We have now eclipsed over 745,000 subscribers, closing in on 750. And, of course, got over 1.3 million downloads over the last couple of months or so on iHeartRadio. Can't thank y'all enough for the love and support. Keep it coming, and I'm going to keep on coming. To continue to like and follow the Stephen A. Smith Show right here on YouTube, just click the bell to get notified of all of our new content, and you, too, shall be the latest member of the Stephen A. Smith Show family. And while you're doing that, please don't forget to pick up a copy of my New York Times best-selling book, Straight Shooter, a memoir of second chances and first takes, now in paperback. Just go to straightshooterbook.com to get yourself a copy. Once again, that's straightshooterbook.com to get yourself a copy. Let's get right to it, y'all. I'm going to get to Team USA basketball. I'm going to get to some sports, okay? I'm going to get to my man Skip Bayless and some of the things he had to say and something that he said about himself that I need to address. But I got to get to this first. Got to get to the race for the White House, where support for the presumptive Democratic nominee Kamala Harris continues to pour in. We'll get to the dollars being raised in a moment, but I want to start with former President Barack Obama and wife Michelle, the greatest first lady in the history of this country, by the way, who called Harris today, lending their support to her campaign. Take a listen.
Kamala.
Hello. Hi.
Hey there.
Oh, hi. You're both together. Oh, it's good to hear you both.
I can't have this phone call without saying to my girl Kamala, I am proud of you. This is going to be historic.
We called to say Michelle and I couldn't be prouder to endorse you and to do everything we can to get you through this election and into the Oval Office.
Oh, my goodness. Michelle, Barack, this means so much to me. I'm looking forward to doing this with the two of you, Doug and I both, and getting out there, being on the road. But most of all, I just want to tell you the words you have spoken and the friendship that you have given over all these years mean more than I can express. So thank you both. It means so much. And we're going to have some fun with this too, aren't we?
It's about damn time. It's about damn time. Better late than never. I personally thought the Obama should have came out immediately endorsing her, but I understand that Obama, being the brilliant statesman that he is, being the face of the party, still to this day, being the most popular in the party, still to this day, obviously wanted to let things play out before he came out front and center. As the former president of the United States, I guess one could surmise it's easier to lean on his judgment and just leave it at that. I guess I'm thinking about the fact this black woman from an HBCU, you're the first black president of the United States of America, the first lady, phenomenal as she is. It would have been nice to see them earlier, to see them speak up early, to be one of the first people to speaking out, that they didn't get beat to it by Chuck Schumer and Adam Schiff and Nancy Pelosi and everybody else in between. It would have been nice. But nevertheless, it happened. And that's what really, really counts. We know that Obama will be speaking at the Democratic National Convention next month in Chicago. The likelihood is they're smart. They'll let Michelle Obama do so as well because she's an exceptional speaker in her own right. And we don't need to hear too much from President Joe Biden. Let him speak for a few minutes out of respect and deference and what have you, and just leave it from there. Here's one of the things that I want to say. And I've said this before and I said it again. Listen. I ain't voting for no damn Donald Trump. I'm just not. But I want to say this to some of the Democrats, particularly these pundits. Stop with the damn emotion. I mean, y'all acting like Biden died. He's still alive. He still has his family. He still has the presidency of the United States for the next 5 to 6 months. He's got a 50-year career in politics to lean on. It has gotten to the point where it's pretty damn embarrassing watching some of these folks out there talking about Biden like, first of all, nobody believes y'all because we know he was forced out. Secondly, even though he was forced out, and rightfully so, because he should have been, because he's not what he used to be, clearly lost his fastball, his cognitive abilities appear to be slipping just a touch, and to be the commander-in-chief of the United States of America, that's a lot when you're 81 years old. Not to say that Nancy Pelosi would have any problem with it, because at 84, she's got the energy of people damn near half her age. But that wasn't the case with Biden. We saw it during the debate. We saw it when he walked and talked. We knew that it was time. I understand that this is an individual that you respect, that obviously if you are a liberal, if you are a Democrat, you think he's done a hell of a job. But to be talking about him like he's the second coming of Gandhi, it's gotten a bit ridiculous. I mean, it really has. I mean, you got people damn near ready to cry in the air. For what? Because it's time for him to go home from his job? Been there 50 years. I mean, 48 to be exact. 36 years as a senator, 8 years as a vice president, 4 years as the president of the United States. What's the problem? Got people on here crying. I don't know what the hell's wrong with y'all. You're supposed to be somewhat objective and just giving us facts and not rife with emotion, because now we know you've been lying all of this time. You knew stuff was wrong. Because look at the effort that it's taken you to even talk about it. So you certainly wasn't going to call him out if he had not elected to step away. You were going to cover. You were going to do what you could to support him. Instead of saying, sir, for the good of the country, you got to step away. Come on, y'all. Get it together. And Barack Obama probably did what needed to be done behind the scenes, and he should be applauded for that. And Michelle Obama, who a lot of people felt should have ran for president, because there's no way in hell Trump would beat her, in my opinion. But it's Kamala Harris. And ladies and gentlemen, it's getting thick up in here. She is the presumptive nominee. There will be, all the competitors have walked away. Gretchen Whitmer and Gavin Newsom's of the world and Wes Moore's of the world and others. Everyone has rallied behind her. She is the Democratic nominee for the presidency of the United States of America. And I don't want to hear no nonsense about how she did bad in the primary 4 years ago. I'm going to talk to my man Will Cain in a few minutes about that, because I know he's going to bring that up. I don't want to hear all of that. The bottom line is that's going up against a bunch of other Democrats trying to win the nomination. This is you having a nomination and going against somebody on the opposite side of the fence. And whether you want to call it lawfare or whatever it is that you want to call it, I think the one thing that Kamala Harris said that was very powerful in her first speech since Biden stepped down was when she said, I know Donald Trump's type. Because she going for him. She going after him. She's doing what he usually does to people. And that's what makes this interesting. I'm a sports guy, ladies and gentlemen. I like competition. I like to see people mano a mano or man versus woman or whatever. I love it. Whatever the game calls for, let's get it on. And what I love about what Kamala Harris is doing more than anything is that she's saying, yo, I think you a criminal. I think you this. I think you that. Don't matter. You the GOP nominee. I'm going to take you down. Let's go. Let's debate. She ain't talking lawfare. She's basically saying, Trump, I'm going to bust your ass. That's what she's saying. That's what she's saying. And I got to admit, I love it. It's must-see TV when they debate each other. If they debate each other. Let me get to this point. Because I got to get to Donald Trump, the GOP nominee I was just talking about, who earlier stated he thought it was important for presidential candidates to debate one another. Remember that, Donald Trump? Well, this Donald Trump, remember Donald Trump and Joe Biden agreed to a second debate that was scheduled for September 10th, right? Remember that? Biden, of course, announced on Sunday that he won't be seeking re-election like I just told y'all, opting instead to lend his support behind Vice President Kamala Harris. We know all of that. Now the Trump campaign said yesterday they won't commit to a debate until Harris is confirmed as the Democratic nominee. Really? Really, Donald Trump? That's what it is? You scared? What the hell's going on? I mean, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to Donald Trump. I'm looking forward. I know y'all might not like this because he was just on trial for some manslaughter or whatever, but it got thrown out. But Alec Baldwin imitating Donald Trump, I missed those skits on Saturday Night Live. I want to see him again. But anyway, I digress. The point is, this is Donald Trump. You love going after folks. You love calling folks out, right? Well, Kamala Harris calling him out. She calling him out. He goes on TV the other day and talks his talk about Kamala Harris. And she like, let's get it on. Let's debate. Ain't nobody running. Nobody scared. All of a sudden, he got nervous. Why could that be? Could it be because of Roe v. Wade? Could it be because you're not that sure those women out there going to come and support you? Could it be because that bipartisan border bill that would have resolved some of these immigrant issues crossing the border got your fingerprints all over it just as much as you want to say her fingerprints were on it because she was the quote-unquote border czar, even though people are saying she wasn't the border czar? But she was because she was in charge of it, so you don't have to call her the czar, but she was in charge of that issue. Fair enough. But the bottom line is Donald Trump got in the way of that bill. Bipartisan being signed into law. Could it be because of that? Could it be because of the theme, the prosecutor versus the criminal, is a little bit too much for you to take right now? I'm just asking. See, I want to see the action. I want to see the debate. That's what I want to see. Okay? Remember, this is Harris for president. This is the statement she gave on Donald Trump immediately following his Fox News appearance. Listen, look at that. Statement on a 78-year-old criminal's Fox News appearance. This is on a Harris for president this is the statement. Main takeaways Trump gave to the American public. Trump praised his Project 2025, the one he distanced himself from, but people who used to work for him basically came up with that one. Trump is flustered and lashing out. When Trump wasn't lying, he was making threats. Abortion bans are good. Mail-in voting is bad. Praise dictators because he wants to be one. Trump is clearly worried he made the wrong pick in J.D. Vance. Trump is old and quite weird. This guy shouldn't be president ever again. If anyone wants an alternative, Kamala Harris is offering one. Damn. That's something Trump would do. That is something Trump would do. Ladies and gentlemen, this ain't the primaries where she's got to compete with other Democrats for their affections. She's the nominee. They'll make it official in Chicago, but she's the nominee. She's got all the support, all the donors, all the financials backing her. She's the nominee. Trump don't need to wait to agree to the damn debate. You ain't agreeing to the debates because you're a little bit nervous. This is Trump, Vance, America, Make America Great Again, 2024. Trump campaign statement on general election debates. Quote, given the continued political chaos surrounding crooked Joe Biden and the Democrat Party, general election debate details cannot be finalized until Democrats formally decide on their nominee. There is a strong sense by many in the Democratic Party, namely Barack Hussein Obama, that Kamala Harris is a Marxist fraud who cannot beat President Trump. And they are still holding out for someone better. Therefore, it would be inappropriate to schedule things with Harris because Democrats very well could still change their minds. Stephen Chung, Trump campaign communications director. I guess that explains why Barack Hussein Obama came out with his endorsement today with his wife, Michelle Obama, by his side. He's saying we put that to rest. You know why he's saying put that to rest, Donald Trump? Because he's saying what you're running for. You're going to try, what excuse now you're going to come up to hide? I can't believe I'm saying this because I'm not ridiculing Anybody. I'm simply saying, Donald Trump, I didn't expect you to run. You look like you running. You look like you scared. You really, really do. You really do. I ain't saying you are, because I don't know. But damn it, you told Biden you wanted to debate him 5 times. In the first debate, I don't know what he said. I don't think he knows what he said. And you weren't just calling him crooked, Joe Biden. You said his faculties weren't there. He's clearly slipped and all of this other stuff. So you were mocking him and ridiculing him and talking about how unalert he was, how he was lacking cogency. All of this other stuff you brought up. But lo and behold, when you got Kamala, who's 19 years younger than you, whose lucidity, whose cogency, whose intellect ain't really something you can question, now all of a sudden you talk about debate rules. Donald Trump, when have you cared about the rules? I mean, part of your popularity is your willingness to buck the system. Let's get it on. Let's do what it takes. Donald Trump, that I knew, that man could throw a party. He could throw a fight when Tyson was fighting at Trump casinos. You understand? Had the hotels. Still got them. Got all of this stuff going on. That Donald Trump loved sports. Basketball games, football games. Remember, he wanted to be an NFL owner of Buffalo Bills. Boxing matches, etc. You understand? One that put money in Dana White's pocket to get Dana White started with the UFC. Donald Trump loves sports. He loves competition. He loves going at it. And all of a sudden, you don't want to debate. You want to see what the rules are and who abides by them. This is a different day, y'all. Kamala Harris is coming. Her campaign's coming. She ain't playing. Because that's the only chance she has to win. She has no chance of beating Donald Trump if she's timid. She has no chance of beating Donald Trump if she's shy, if she ain't willing to be aggressive and assertive. Remember, some of the things they say about her. Remember that. Some of the things they say about her is that she don't play. She really, really doesn't. Her analytical abilities have been praised, and her toughness. This ain't Joe Biden, the 81-year-old Joe Biden. It's a different animal that's coming Donald Trump's way right now. And he seems to know it, and so does J.D. Vance, his vice presidential candidate. Enough from me. Okay, everybody, you know what time it is, right? It's time for Stephen A. Sports Picks. And you know what? I'm about to go crazy right now. Why? Because today I'll be making picks for some of the biggest names in men's basketball who are playing in this year's Olympic Games. But I can hear y'all asking already. I hear y'all. How are you going to do that, Stephen A? Well, guess what? It's easy. I'm going to do it with Prize Picks, of course. That's right. You see, Prize Picks is a skill-based, real money daily fantasy sports game where you select 2 or more players and predict if they will have more or less than their stat projections for the game. And it's not just basketball in the Olympics. Oh, no. There is the WNBA. There is tennis. Damn it, there's even golf, boxing, and of course, MMA. And if you go to prizepicks.com right now and use promo code SAS, you'll receive a 100% deposit bonus up to $100. You heard me. Right now, go to prizepicks.com. Type in my initials SAS for a first-time deposit match up to $100. Now let's look at all of my winning picks, all right? The one and only LeBron James. Longevity, the king. That LeBron James. More or less than 0.5 points. Y'all serious? Really? That's what we doing? LeBron James, and you can't even give him a point? Is that even a real number? Really? I mean, the question is utterly ridiculous, but very easy. And if you're trying to win money, easy is what you're looking for. So we're going to go with more on LeBron James, okay? That's what we're going to do. Next up, Wimby himself, the one and only Victor Wembanyama for the San Antonio Spurs. Team France, by the way. More or less 19.5 points. They haven't been playing well, at least in the exhibition, but the brother's 7'5". And he's a primary offensive focal point for the team. I could see him getting 19.5 points. Even if they lose, he's still going to get more than 19.5 points. I'm going to go with more. You 7'5", I'm going to bet on you scoring more than 19.5 points. My league MVP in the NBA last year, even though people picked Jokic, I picked this man, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander for Team Canada. More or less than 21.5 points. The brother's got skills. He knows how to score. He's got a fluid game. He can play. Was made for Olympic competition. He's got a mid-range game. He's got a long-range game. He can get to the free throw line. He can make things happen. And he's a focal point that the team trusts. I could see him scoring more than 21.5 points, so I'm going to go with more on him. And last but not least, the Greek freak himself, the one and only Giannis Antetokounmpo. More or less 25 points. See, here's the thing. I haven't heard much about what Greece brings to the table, but I know what Giannis brings to the table. And I know that even though collectively you can beat his team, there's no answer for him. This locomotive coming at you. 25 points, Olympic competition, I know. It's a tough sell, but it's Giannis. And because it is him, I'm going to go with more. For LeBron James, okay? For Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, for Giannis Antetokounmpo, for Victor Wembanyama. I'm going more. Because that's what we do at Prize Picks. We love to give you more so you can come back for more. Let's talk to somebody who I must admit is more of an expert at this stuff than I am because it's what he does for a living every single day. He's been on ESPN before, doing radio, been a frequent contributor on my show First Take, my day job. We've been friends for years, even though we almost never agree and we always argue. So it just seemed apropos to have him on right now. I'm talking about my buddy who works at Fox News, Fox and Friends on the weekends, also got his own podcast, the Will Cain podcast and all of that stuff. The one and only Will Cain. Right here with your boy right now. What's up, Big Tom? How you doing?
What's up, Stephen A? Aloha. You know, when I launched the Will Cain show on FoxNews.com, I believe my very first guest was Stephen A. Smith. And I asked you to do me that favor. I asked you, hey, man, I would love revisiting some of our old conversations. Would you do this for me? And you said yes. So when you text me, am I on vacation in Hawaii? My answer is yes, absolutely. I can't wait to be on the Stephen A. Smith show.
You know it, and I appreciate it, man. But I had to get this started, Will, because you know what? I'm looking at former President Donald Trump, and the man that called out Joe Biden was saying that we can debate anytime. We can debate 5 times and all this stuff. And now all of a sudden he looks like he's running from the vice president, Kamala Harris. Now you talk politics all the time. You talk about this stuff. Obviously, we know where you stand. We know where the news network that you work for stands. I want to know what you think about your man Donald Trump at least looking like he is running from Kamala Harris. Could you explain that, please?
Yeah, I don't even think you believe that. Come on, man. I don't think you believe he would
Yes,
be
I do. I do.
The same man, Stephen A. The same man. And let's be real. In one of the most consequential events in probably at least 30 years, perhaps a half a century, took a bullet to his ear, millimeters from death, Stephen A., right, whose first reaction, and right, I wouldn't judge anyone for their reaction in that moment. I wouldn't judge you, Stephen A. I wouldn't judge my best friend that if they got up and ran panicked and scared, I wouldn't judge them because they're but for the grace of God go I. I don't know how I'd react to an attempted assassination. But I can look at someone whose first reaction was, hold on, let me get my shoes, and then raise his fist in the air and yell, fight, 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 with blood trickling down his cheek. I don't think that man is afraid of debating Kamala Harris. I do think this, Stephen A., and I don't know if you've ever had the privilege of meeting Donald Trump or being around Donald Trump, but he has the
I have back
he has
before,
the
before
quality
he was president.
then,
I have.
Then you've probably experienced this. You've seen this. I think Trump is that little he's that id. He's that voice inside your head that tells you the truth, but sometimes says to you, hey, don't say it that way. Say it a different way. You know, he says whatever is on his mind, and there's an element of truth to his bluntness. He doesn't live in a world of should or shouldn't or idealism or ideology. He lives in the world of is. And so when he chose not to participate, for example, the Republican primary, he looked at what is, and he said, I don't need to. I'm way ahead of all of these individuals. What does it benefit me to debate Ron DeSantis, to debate Nikki Haley? And I think he's probably making a similar calculation when it comes to Kamala Harris. I'm ahead. I'm winning this election. What does it benefit me to debate Kamala Harris? I don't think he's scared. I think he's just saying what is.
I don't know if I can agree with you on that, Will Cain. No surprise there because, I mean, obviously there's been some strong momentum that she's picked up on since President Biden announced that he was stepping aside and paving the way for her to be the presumptive and ultimately the Democratic nominee for the presidency of the United States. And Trump has been on the record stating that he believes the two candidates for president should debate versus one another. And then he's trying to sit up there and throw out this song and dance about how, you know what, there's no need to think about that until we're sure she's going to be the nominee. Everybody and their mother has endorsed her. She's going to be the Democratic nominee. It is as obvious as the sky is blue. So there is no excuse. And to me, if he's backtracking right now, because he sounds like he's backtracking, I detect a little bit of nervousness on the part. Now, obviously, that's not the same as what he went through. I'm not one of these conspiracy theorists and acting like he didn't get shot, or you got the FBI talking about we didn't discovered, you know, if it was a bullet that damaged his ear and all of this other nonsense. There was an attempted assassination on a former president, and that's nothing to joke about. That's something to be very serious about, and thank God he survived and he didn't get killed. Having said that, a different subject matter is that you got a VP who obviously is strong on women's rights to choose. She clearly is in favor of that. He was somebody that bragged about being a proponent of overturning Roe v. Wade. And you got a lot of women out there that may side with her. And maybe that's what has him nervous, Will Cain. What do you say to that?
Well, I'll say it's not a matter of me giving you a point. You and I have been around each other a lot of times. I think, and you know this, I think you make a lot of great points. So let me acknowledge something that you're saying right now. Even though you and I have disagreement, I think you make a lot of interesting, and my favorite thing about you beyond being my friend is your unpredictability. So let me return this favor. I think Kamala is a moonshot for Democrats. I think she has a higher ceiling and a lower floor than Joe Biden. Joe Biden was a known quantity, and it was a negative quantity. It was increasingly and coalescing into a problem, a negative element for Democrats. He was going to lose. Kamala could generate, as you point out, more enthusiasm. Stephen A., I also think she could crater. I don't know what's going to happen. I think when the spotlight shines on you, you never know who's going to be exposed or what's going to be, how someone will react. I think Ron DeSantis is an example of that. Once the spotlight was on him, it was clear he wasn't going to win a Republican primary, and he's not built for the national spotlight. We'll have to see when it comes to Kamala, but I'll acknowledge some enthusiasm that her ceiling could be higher than Joe Biden's. I want to ask you this, Stephen A., and this is a return to some of the great conversations that we've had. So, you know what's interesting to me is the current idea that she being a DEI beneficiary is somehow racist. If I come to you and I say, look, Kamala Harris is a DEI beneficiary politician, I don't know what your response to that is, Stephen A., but I know that many on the left are going, well, that's racist. But here's what I can't reconcile. You know, DEI was described as a good. So why now are you assuming that it's a negative? And Joe Biden himself has said that she, by the way, is a great feather in his cap. She's a great feather in his cap on DEI. That's what Biden has said. So how is it that you can simultaneously say the proverbial you, because I don't know yet what is said by Stephen A. Smith. How can you say, oh, she's a great example of the benefits of DEI and say it's racist also for opponents to point out that she's a beneficiary of DEI?
Well, I don't think you can. I don't have a problem with that question, first of all, because you and I talk all the time and we go back and forth and we are friends. We're former colleagues working at ESPN together. You're my buddy. So, you know, we talk about this stuff and butt heads and argue back and forth and then we go out and have a drink or something. That's what we do. So let's make sure we put that out to the audience right there. Having said that, when I'm saying that I don't have a problem with what you're asking because you bring up the part about those who say she's a product of DEI. So why was it a complimentary thing before, but now it's a racist thing now? That's a legitimate question, okay? What I would say to you is most people don't view her as a product of DEI. When we talk about DEI, we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. Of course, we talk about equity, we talk about inclusion, we talk about diversity, and some of the things that you're doing, the reason why they're in existence is because of the iniquities of this system and people who run it for decades upon decades upon decades. That's why so many things like affirmative action and other things had to come into existence because of the iniquitous actions of those who played a different game, and they engaged in prejudice, and they engaged in bigotry, and they engaged in marginalization and pigeonholing and denying folks the opportunities even though they deserved it. In the case of a Harris who came from an HBCU, who was a district attorney in the city of San Francisco, a state attorney general in the state of California, the vice president of the United States of America, what we're saying is the qualifications on that resume are so expansive at this point in time that DEI shouldn't even be mentioned. And for folks to bring that up, you're doing it because not you, Will, but folks who are bringing it up now because they're trying to find something to swing at to sort of assist in alienating potential voters that may go in her direction. That would be my answer to your question.
And our disagreement will lie in the following. A, she has been proclaimed to be a beneficiary of DEI. So they're not creating this out of thin air. That people have said, hey, look, this is a great thing. She is a product of DEI. In the same way they've said that about Ketanji Brown Jackson. Joe Biden brags, I appointed the first black female to the Supreme Court of the United States. Blatantly saying, I prioritize skin color. And when you prioritize something like that, you are saying you've prioritized it over what? And the implication is clearly some merit. Now, that doesn't mean you go absolutely to zero merit. That doesn't mean the person is selected, whether or not a Supreme Court justice or Kamala Harris, has zero merit, but you place something else above merit. In this case, their skin color. And I think the second place of disagreement, so B, is you gave her resume. My argument back to you would be...
I don't know if we disagree on that part.
Okay. And then, but on her resume...
I'm not saying that we disagree on that part. Like when the president...
Stephen A., is a resume that everyone in public life and most corporate CEOs can match. Like you pointed out, her college degree, her law degree. The truth is, Kamala Harris has not been a very successful politician. She doesn't have a lot on paper to speak for herself. I mean, she came from San Francisco, one of the far left districts in the United States. That doesn't make you well suited for a national political office. It just doesn't, because San Francisco is not very representative of the broader United States of America. She doesn't have any policies.
That's fair.
She doesn't have any policies anybody's super proud of or that she can brag about. So her primary thing, her primary feather in her cap, her primary qualification for Joe Biden was, in fact, the color of her skin. That she was, in his estimation, a great leap forward for the United States of America in appointing the first black vice president, female black vice president. And therefore, it's not an insult to go, oh, you prioritize DEI. Now don't call me, and I'm not talking about me individually, but don't call someone racist for pointing out she's a beneficiary of DEI.
Well, listen, what I would say to you is this. If you want to sit up there and say don't call somebody racist, that's fine, because I'm down for that, because that word is thrown out too loosely at times. And I definitely would side with you on that. But I'm certainly not going to look at her and say, excuse me, what her resume is really not that impressive. At the end of the day, titles do matter. And that comes associated with resumes. Like, you're Will Cain, sure, but you were a political analyst, you were a sports analyst, you were a sports radio host, et cetera, et cetera. You've done a lot of things to diversify your portfolio. Ultimately, what we read, we're looking at your titles and we're deducing you had to have some level of ability to be in a position to accomplish all of these things. Now, you can sit up there as a senator, one of 100 senators, okay, or you're a district attorney in the city of San Francisco, or you're an attorney general in the state of California, the second largest state in the union. Those are major accomplishments. Being the vice president of the United States, that's a major accomplishment. And so when you look at it from that standpoint, and there are those who are inclined to lean on race before they're bringing up her qualifications, it ain't just about race. It's also about gender in some people's eyes. There are a lot of women out there that might have an issue with it because of the gender factor just as much as the race factor, which brings me to my next question to you, Will. CNN interview. Former presidential candidate Nikki Haley condemned the personal attacks on Vice President Kamala Harris's race and gender, calling them, quote, not helpful. So that's a Republican, a former presidential candidate, that is calling out the Republican Party, saying it ain't helpful at all, folks going in that direction. Do you agree or disagree with that?
You know, that's a complicated calculation. Like, the reason I say it's complicated, here's what I'd ask anybody watching right now. Do you think the conversation that Stephen A. are having, and I'd ask you this, Stephen A., do you think the conversation that we are having right now is disrespectful to Kamala Harris? Because I do not. I think this is a valid and important discussion you and I are having right now. Now, that doesn't mean that everyone who brings up race and gender does it in a way that I think is respectful and important. So there are some that will attack and it will seem like cheap shots. But the problem is the subject itself is not a cheap shot. It is an important question about the qualifications for someone to be the leader of the free world. You're right that Kamala Harris has accumulated titles throughout her career. The question is, how has she accumulated those titles? Was it by selection or by election? You know, she didn't even get 1% in a Democratic primary. She didn't make it to Iowa. She has fewer votes for national public office than Dean Phillips, than Robert F. Kennedy Jr. The party that tells you they are all about saving democracy just selected, again for Kamala Harris, selected her to be their representative, interestingly, in the most undemocratic fashion. Now, if you and I explore why, gender, race, or just the elites of the Democratic Party, you know, the donors, the media elites, and the political elites, like the Clintons and the Obamas, selected Kamala Harris. And I think that's a very, very, not just legitimate, but important discussion to have, especially when her party is the one flying the banner of, we're here to save democracy. You surely act like you have no interest in the actualities of democracy while singing the songs of democracy.
I get where you're coming from, but first of all, we live in a binary system. You got a two-party system. And like I've said on many, many occasions, if you're a liberal, if you're a progressive, all right, if you're a leftist, if you're a Democrat, you believe that the Biden presidency has been phenomenal. If you are conservative, if you are a Republican, you think it's been a disaster. And you're wondering what the hell is wrong with people. That's the kind of system that we live in, where people want what they want and their definition of success may be different than the other. But what we can agree on, Will, is that when you look at somebody like a Kamala Harris, based on her resume, based on her titles, right? Knowing that she, you know, as a district attorney or as an attorney general or as a senator, right, you got to take into consideration who you have to work with and how you can't do things alone. Then we look at a president. You look at a president here that had never been in elected office. When he ran in 2016, he was beating people with one-liners. Jeb Bush, low energy, little Marco. You know, Lord knows what he was saying about Chris Christie and others. He ultimately wins the Electoral College vote, even though he lost the popular vote, right? Because Hillary and James Comey at the last minute, a couple of weeks before the election, all of this stuff comes out, right? Now we sit here and you're talking about, can you understand how a public can look at you or a public can look at anybody that thinks, and I'm not talking about, Will, I'm not comparing you to pundits who go out there and are throwing out snide remarks and insults and stuff. That ain't your bag. I know you. That's not your bag. I'm not accusing you of that. But those who do that, can you understand how folks on the left would find that utterly appalling when the person you're speaking up for in the process has been impeached twice, had 34 felony counts labeled against him, found guilty of it, lost a civil suit for about $454 million. I mean, the list goes on. It's hard for people on the left to sit up there and listen to some folks on the right talking what they're talking in an effort to big up an individual like that while pointing out whatever you can about the vice president. What do you say to that?
So it's interesting in listening to you talk, like, I don't know that you were being dismissive because I think I know you. And what I mean is when you talk about Trump, you say he came from the outside, he mastered the one-liner. You know, as well as I know you, despite all of the success that you've achieved, and you've climbed to the top of the mountain, obviously, Stephen A., when it comes to sports, and now you're in the process of climbing other mountains. We'll just wait and see when you get that late night television show on ABC. But as you climb these mountains, there's something I know about you. You do feel like an outsider. You do have a chip on your shoulder of not being selected, of not being someone that the machine has taken and wrapped their arm around. And you've had to earn that from the outside. And so when you see something like Donald Trump coming from the outside, I would think, and I'm just guessing here, and you don't even have to respond, part of that has to appeal to you.
I'll respond.
It has to appeal to you as someone who came in from the outside and forced themselves to the top of the mountain in politics.
Oh, no. No, I'm not denying that. And I'm not denying that there's validity to what you're saying, particularly when you describe me. I've never thought about it, but I can't summarily dismiss that, Will. You might be right. I got to think about that a little bit.
I know I'm right.
But what I'm saying is I'm not saying it in a negative kind of way about the former president. I'm simply juxtaposing it to the questions that side would have about the vice president that's now going to be the Democratic nominee. That's all I'm doing. I'm not sitting there and looking at anything else. I'm saying compared the two. Right now, this is the fight that we have to anticipate. And I just think that you got to come up with a better argument from the right than that, based on who your candidate is.
To tie this together, so on one hand, you've got a candidate that literally forced their way into the national conversation, not just despite the Democratic Party's opposition, not just despite his own party's opposition. The Republican Party did not want Donald Trump in 2016, probably didn't want him in 2020, and might have looked to replace him in 2024. But he also forced himself, despite the deep, entrenched administrative state that is every arm of the American government that has come against him, versus a candidate who, as we just point out, was literally selected outside the democratic process by the elites in media and billionaires and politics. That is Kamala Harris's rise. She was not voted in by the Democratic voter. And I don't think Democratic voters care for some reason that much. They're not upset about this, but she did not win a single Democratic primary, not a single vote. And she was selected. So I think that
doesn't matter.
I know it doesn't matter. Sadly, it doesn't matter. I know that. But what I was going to say is, you talk about how the left hears me or how the right hears the left. This also doesn't matter, Stephen A. One thing I like about you, and I'd like to think about myself, is when people talk from opposite sides, one of the things they try to do is play to the cheap seats of their own side. So I could come on and be like, get high fives from the right and grow my own audience. And you can try to get high fives from the left and grow your own audience. Yeah. But the truth is, when it comes to real persuasion, real ability to win debates, and real ability to win elections, you're talking about the swing individual independent in the middle. And I think that's what you are guiding me towards in this conversation. And I do think that litany of stuff you talked about, right? The lawsuits, the criminal charges, how does that affect the independent person? By the way, I think all of that, by the way, is lawfare. I don't think much of it is legit. I'm not saying he's an angel, but I also don't think all of that is legit. But that doesn't matter. What I think, it's what does the individual independent in the middle think? And what does that independent individual in the middle think about Kamala Harris's competency? In the end, it's going to come down to that. Most people you've met in your life, Stephen A., over the last decade, you know this, and you and I can name some people. It all comes down to this. Do you like Donald Trump or you dislike Donald Trump? It's as simple as that. They don't think much deeper in it, and it's guttural. I just don't like them. I just don't like the man, or I love the man. And in the end, that's kind of the depth of most people's analysis of Donald Trump.
That's fair. That's fair because I look at him. Listen, I listen. Before the pandemic, the economy was doing quite well. We can't deny that. We can't take that away from him. But in the same breath, he doesn't hesitate to take credit for things that preceded him or things that followed that were done after him. And that's what politicians do, particularly those who become one. Having said all of that, I'll say this to you: Harris is closing in on key demos for the GOP that the GOP hope to capture. The youth vote with the Swifties rising up. White women breaking Zoom, raising $2 million in just under 2 hours. Black men and black women raising record dollars via Zoom as well. That there's a level of momentum that she has clearly gained. And I think here's the part that you didn't bring up, Will, that I'm kind of surprised by, but it's not a big deal. All of this stuff, the lawfare that you alluded to.
Yeah.
Even though she's talking about the prosecutor prosecuting the criminal per se, we ain't talking about him going back to court, particularly after the assassination attempt. We're talking about, you got the vice president of the United States, who you pointed out didn't do well in the primaries in 2020, all right? Didn't have that much support up until now. She is calling this man out. She wants him. And he's the one that seems reluctant to go head to head with her in a debate. How do you explain all of that?
I think what's going to happen is this. The race has just changed for him. And you have to give him a little bit of time because, to your point, it's like she just this week got the majority of the delegates pledged to her that she's going to be the nominee. Just today, she got Barack Obama's endorsement. So she's not been officially his opponent for very long. Well, actually, she's not even officially his opponent yet, but it hasn't been obvious that she'd be his opponent. And I think he's probably making a calculation. How do I do this? In the end, he'll do what he always does. He'll go on offense, and he will go after her, and he'll try to expose her as lacking competency or experience or qualifications or successes. And he will. Right. And my suspicion is there will be a debate, Stephen A., because I think it's his nature. He'll go head on. One more thing I wanted to go back to with you on. You talked about the demographics. Trump's gain with black men, pretty interesting, right? Now, don't force yourself into a false debate. It's not, does Trump get 90%? It's actually that in the past, Democrats got 90% of the black vote. If a Republican gets 30% of the black vote, that's election swinging. That changes the course, right? You don't have to win 51% of the black vote, but if you shift it from 90 to 70, that's huge. And I am curious, what black men will do. If black men were moving to Trump, will they move back away from him for Kamala? And I'm not convinced that will happen. I know about the money raising thing. I know what you're talking about. I know all that, but I'll be curious. She may do better than Biden, but it still may be historical for Trump with black men.
Well, you're absolutely right about that because, first of all, there's no way in hell he's getting a majority of the black vote. That's not going to happen, but he doesn't need it, as you accurately pointed out. If that percentage shifts, even 10%, she's in trouble, no question. Or at least that's what people thought was the case with him against Biden. Here's the issue. The overturning of Roe v. Wade. And how he couldn't keep his mouth shut and stood front and center. I'm the one that provoked this. I'm the one that pushed for this, et cetera, et cetera. When you bring up the border issue, she was no border czar, but they called her the border czar. She was in charge of it. Over 10.5 million immigrants crossed the border illegally. That's on her watch. But there are facts supporting that Trump stopped the bipartisan bill because he wanted it to be something they could campaign on when it came to the border. So it's about debate skills. It's about who's going to have the facts on their side and who's going to be able to articulate and elocute it to that advantage. I got to admit to you, when I saw Trump in that speech, I thought he ruined the Republican National Convention. I thought it was absolutely run to perfection until his speech. And I think that he could find himself in a world of trouble, Will.
A world of trouble. By the way, the speech, I think the first 30 minutes were perfect. First 30 minutes were something that swingable independent voter would have appreciated. I'll give you that the last hour of it sounded like a Donald Trump rally and isn't going to appeal to people outside of his already converted base. Real quick, you brought up three things. So the border czar thing, this is a crazy time. This is the propaganda that really gets under my skin. She was in charge. She was the point person. Okay. Now, you know something in Washington, D.C., she didn't want the job. And it was kind of an insult for Joe Biden to give it to her because it was an unwinnable job under their policies. But do you watch Veep? You should watch Veep because sometimes I feel like it's a documentary about Kamala Harris. But it's a joke. Zara, make them a czar, right? It's like an insult for a oh, you made me the czar of drugs or the czar of border. She was the point person. And in essence, Biden threw under the bus on that really hard issue. On the bipartisan thing, that argument's not going to fly, I don't think. It's like, hey, man, we need to put an alarm. You and I are roommates in a house. We need an alarm system because people keep breaking in. And you say to me, well, I'm not putting an alarm system in, Will, until you figure out how to fix the sinks. I'm like, no, man, we don't have to do this all at the same time. We have to fix the border. We got to put an alarm in. Democrats always try to couple it with, well, what are we going to do about providing a pathway to citizenship for the existing illegal immigrants? Why don't you do that separately? Can't we all agree that you got to secure the border? So this whole thing, Trump stopped it. I mean, it should be an American priority to secure our border. So I mean, just
It isn't.
finally on abortion.
Well, we
he
agree
did.
there.
He did appoint the Supreme Court justice that overturned Roe v. Wade, but he has made very, very clear he's not interested in a national abortion ban. Like, he's made very clear, and that's a huge shift for Republicans. And J.D. Vance has echoed it. They are not pushing an abortion ban.
Okay. Well, you brought up J.D. Vance because I was going to ask him next. I got just a couple of more questions on this subject matter. First of all, is it true that J.D. Vance once considered Trump's harshest critic, once called him Hitler? Is that true?
That I'm not dodging. I literally have seen what you've seen on that, but I've never seen the direct quote. I know he was a very harsh critic.
I don't want.
But
my researchers gave me that, and I didn't want to say definitively.
I'm real skeptical of people saying someone said something unless I see it myself. And so I'm not saying he did or didn't, but
that's exactly why I asked you.
Yeah. And by the way, on J.D. Vance, I like that he's changed.
That's exactly what
I like that. Stephen A., you know me for a while. I was open back on ESPN on First Take. We talked about Donald Trump. I was not a supporter, and I've changed my opinion of Donald Trump over time. And I think human beings should be.
Did you really? Did you really? Or is it just that you ain't going to vote liberal? Did you really change it, or is it just that you're not going to vote liberal? That's all. You only got two choices.
Fair question. No. I'm going to tell you why, okay? I'm going to tell you I want to be 100% honest. I'm going to tell you what happened. First of all, I'm going to be real with you. Sitting with you and Max on that day-to-day basis on First Take was probably the beginning. I thought, and I'm not coming after you individually, and I said it to Max on air, I do not like the way you keep vilifying supporters of Donald Trump. I don't like the way you turn everything into not just an attack on Trump, but the people that support Trump.
I never did that.
I know.
Yeah, I never did that. I never get into supporters of it. I never did that. You did. That was an argument between you and Max.
I didn't like the reaction to Donald Trump at the time, and I had to be careful. Like, don't react to the reaction, Will. And then I started to see a lot of the stuff they said about Trump just wasn't true. Like the very fine people thing, Stephen A., it's just not true. He never called Nazis very fine people. He just didn't do it. All you have to do is play that clip 60 seconds longer, and you'll hear him say, I'm not talking about white supremacists. So all that started to break down. And then I saw the effect of the policies. Second, Stephen A., I'm like, going pretty good. And I liked the way he changed Republicanism. I liked that he focused more on middle class, that he focused on blue collar workers, that he focused on the forgotten middle American. I liked that. And then finally, third, I'm not saying I know him, but I have been around him on several occasions. And here's the truth. If you just want to know the truth, he's really, really likable. He's a likable guy. And between those three things, I had moved from someone who said, when I sat with you at a desk in 2016, Donald Trump's all about himself, to where I sit here today and I support him as a unique and individual candidate, not just as a reaction to the left.
Well, let me say this before I move on. I consider him the ultimate narcissist, but I've never castigated Trump supporters. I don't buy into that game. You're an American citizen. You got the right to vote for whoever you want to, and I can't stand the second you think differently than somebody wants you to think. All of a sudden, you're everything negative outside, but the child of God, for crying out loud. It's ridiculous, and I don't subscribe to that. That's number one. Number two, I don't support Donald Trump because I think that he's outside of the narcissism. I think he would be on a vengeance tour, and I don't think he would be about governing. I think he would be about having power and complete dominion, and I think it would be pretty close to a damn autocracy. That's what I feel. Having said that, one of the biggest reasons I wanted you on today, Will, is because over the last week or so, I've had Democrats on the show. And I'm not about that. You know me. I listen to all sides. And I wanted conservatives and Republicans out there to know, just like if I'm going to have liberals on this show, I'm going to have conservatives on this show. And I'm going to treat them with the same respect, and I'm going to ask the same kind of questions, and I'm going to play devil's advocate as best as I possibly can, because fairness is a very, very big thing to me. That's what I feel. He scares me, Will. He scares me. And I know that we should say, hey, you could look at some of the things happening outside. I'm not down with the woke culture. I think it's going. I'm not about the fringes. I don't like extremes on the right or the left. I'm a centrist. That's me. Who's going to come closer to the center? That's really what it comes down to for me. And I don't trust him, Will. I don't trust him.
Okay. let me just, we're having a conversation here, and I'm just having a conversation with my old friend. I'm not worried about the time of your show and all that. So, meaning how much our time pressure is. So, first of all, I know this about you. I know you want to have conversations with people of different stripes. So do I. You know that about me. And that's what I try to do on the Will Cain show as well.
Yep.
It's not only more enlightening, it's more interesting.
You're doing good.
Fun. Thank you. Thank you, bud. Second, okay, Stephen A., two things. You're a centrist. Under Donald Trump, I would argue, despite people saying, oh, far right, all right, what's further right? For real, like, name the thing. Like, okay, there's more trade protectionism specifically against China. That used to be on the left. That was a left thing. I mean, a greater embrace of free speech. The left's taken up censorship. That, like, in the 90s, when you and I were, like, growing up in the 90s, it's like, oh, free speech, that was a lefty thing. And the right was, you worry about rap lyrics. Like, right. I just kind of go through all the policies. I'm like, he's even on LGBTQ issues, gay marriage. He supported gay marriage before Barack Obama. It's like he pivoted the Republican Party closer to the center than George W. Bush. And then lastly, on this, you're afraid. You said, I'm afraid. You know, I think he would. Come on, man. Like, the authoritarian thing, I think, is one of the biggest fear tactics being employed today, that we have to save democracy. Donald Trump, I don't think you're under any threat that he's going to decline to leave office. He's going to stick around after 4 years, that he wants to be an authoritarian, a dictator on day one. Because the people that are telling me that want to reform /pack, overturn the Supreme Court, want to censor speech on the internet, want to select their candidate, not elect their candidate in Kamala Harris. The manner of sins the left is committing under the banner of saving democracy at this point is just, it's like, it's the most obvious piece of propaganda that I've seen in years. And it's only designed to make you exactly what you said you are, afraid.
Okay. Listen, that's a fair point on your part. I mean, I don't totally agree with it, but I can't sit up there and look at you and say that's an argument out of the sky. You are absolutely right, because a lot of times, a lot of us don't know every issue nook and cranny because we're not covering it the way that you do. So you got sound bites, or you might read articles, and you read something in the Wall Street Journal, you read something in the New York Times, and you read something in the Washington Post, and you read something in the LA Times. You go to Politico, you go to the Drudge Report. It's different sides. Everybody is coming at you with a different angle, and you're wondering about what the truth is. So I get where you're coming from, and you're more connected than most. I'll defer to you on that for the moment. But we're going to revisit this conversation. I'm not going to take up too much more of your time because you're on vacation in Hawaii making time for your boy, and I really appreciate it. But you know there's no way in hell I'm going to let you off the hook, Will Cain, and let you get out of here without switching to sports for a second and talking to you about your Dallas Cowboys. Now, they ain't do a damn thing this offseason. Didn't get Derrick Henry. Let him get away to Baltimore, okay, and from Tennessee instead of grabbing him. You got to sign Micah Parsons. You got to sign CeeDee Lamb. You got to sign Dak Prescott. I mean, it's going to happen again, Will. Y'all are going to fall again. Your Dallas Cowboys. How are you looking forward to this fall, knowing that the inevitable will soon arrive? That black cat is running around that franchise, and y'all will play.
Well, there it is. There's the line. The black cat running around your franchise.
You know it.
First off, my thing is, I'll tell you the truth. I have never felt less enthusiastic about a Cowboys season in years, and especially when they're not bad. Wow. They're pretty good. But you want to want one of the reasons why I'm not enthusiastic? I don't think Jerry has to worry about this because the Cowboys are America's team and they're a national franchise. But we are spoiled in Dallas, Stephen A. I've got a World Series championship that I'm resting on. I've got an NBA Finals appearance. I saw you in Dallas for the one lone victory of the Dallas Mavericks, though, in the finals, now signing Klay Thompson, and with, I think, the best player in the NBA and Luka Doncic. I have my Texas Longhorns making the college football semifinals, and I have the Dallas Stars making the Final Four in hockey. Literally, I'm on a heater in Dallas. And the Dallas Cowboys' lack of enthusiasm is because, hey, everybody else is giving me what I need. Where are you, Cowboys? Where are you, Jerry Jones? And you're right. They did nothing this offseason. CeeDee Lamb's not in training camp. I'm not as worried about Derrick Henry because I am in the camp of don't pay running backs big money. So we'll see about Rico Dowdle and running back by committee. But I am worried, man. They're not going to be bad. They're going to be, they're going to be a playoff team. But the question is, are they going to be anything more than they've always been?
I love it this way.
One game.
I love it this way. They're going to be just good enough to tease fans into thinking they're going to be relevant, and they're going to plummet.
But I still believe
that's what's going to happen, Will. You know what I'm saying? That's what's going to happen, right?
Dak. I always, Dak, I can't quit Dak. I try to quit him, but I keep coming back, I think he's a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. I know he's a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. And I just think at some point that level of quarterback has got to break through. When you're sitting on this many shots, first round, second round, sooner or later you break through, right? Sooner or later, this comes up aces for Dak. I have to think that's true, Stephen A.
Listen, man, before I let you get on out of here, this is my very last question. I'd be remiss in neglecting to bring this up. You left ESPN. You're at Fox. You're on Fox and Friends on the weekends. You're a guest host at times on other shows. You've got your own podcast. You're doing some big things, man. I'm real proud of you, man. And I know, how shaky it was for you in terms of you trying to decide which direction you wanted to go in and what you wanted to do. How do you feel about your career right now, where you are, and the kind of strides you appear to be taking in your career? How are you feeling about yourself right now?
Are you asking me if I regret leaving you in ESPN? Like, how am I feeling having made the decisions that I made?
No. Of course that would be yes. Of course that would be yes. What else? Go ahead, man.
Well, I'm going to tell you something. You know what my favorite thing about First Take is right now? How much fun you're having. You need to have fun. You fun is fun. And sometimes back in the day, it was, I loved what I did on First Take with you because truth is we did have fun. We were fun on the Cowboys debates. We could poke at each other, but we also had depth. And I think we were having some conversations back on First Take back in the day that just didn't happen in America and aren't happening today in America, not in that way. Right. And I miss that. I do miss that. And to your point, that's what you're doing on the Stephen A. Smith Show, and that's what I want to do on the Will Cain Show. We don't have enough in that in America now of people of disagreement coming together, and you and I, man, we would go at it, and the minute it was over, we'd reach our fists across the table. We just would. That's because in my mind, because we were men, and then we'd have fun. But I'm real happy to be where I am. I love Fox, and I do miss talking more sports. I want to talk more sports, but I also understood how important this moment was in history, starting in 2020 all the way through where we are today. And I wanted to take that on a little more on the nose, a little more directly. And I would venture to say, I bet you feel the same way. And that's what you're doing with the Stephen A. Smith Show. You get the opportunity to participate in this because if you think about what's happened in the past month, I mean, quite honestly, we're locked. It's like every week, maybe every half a week, it's been like a history-making event in news, an assassination attempt, pushing out Joe Biden, selecting Kamala Harris, the debate over and over. It's like, I've got to be in that. I need to be in that. And I'd like to think that you and I are two unique individuals in providing a conversation around that is just all too wanting in America. And so I'm happy with the choice I made. I miss you. I miss sports. I'm happy with where I am and where I am in the conversation in America.
I feel you. I feel the same way, man. And it's like it's conversations that have to happen. People have to be honest about where they're coming from, what they feel, and why. But they also have to be willing to accept that there are folks who have a different opinion, and that they're not the devil just because they have that different opinion. And I think that's where our society has really disintegrated to some degree. That's what I'm really, really concerned about. It's your way or no way. And that's right. And that's just, to me, that's not what America is all about. That's just not how it goes. And so,
totally agree.
I hope that Kamala Harris wins. You hope that Donald Trump wins. But the point is that no matter who wins, America, we've got intestinal fortitude. We got resolve. We're supposed to be able to go on no matter what. And sometimes we act like that's not the case, and that's what worries me. But that's all I got to say about that. Will, go back and enjoy your vacation, man. I appreciate it. I'll see you when you get back from Hawaii, my man. We'll connect.
All right, thanks,
you
Steve,
take it easy, all right? Thanks a lot.
Thank you, man.
All right, my man. The one and only Will Cain from Fox News, Fox and Friends on the weekends. He's doing some big things and continuing to grow in this business. And we don't agree on much, as y'all could tell. We really, really don't. But He's always been a smart brother, lawyer by profession. I mean, really smart as a whip, and doing a damn good job on Fox News. And he's been a friend of mine for years because of our years working at ESPN together and what have you. He's honest about where he stands. He doesn't have a phony bone in his body. He's going to let you know how he feels and why. And that's all I ask. You know, that's how you feel. That's why. And you're respectful about it, but this is where you're coming from. Cool. You know, that's what it is. Try to convince you otherwise. If I'm unsuccessful, I'm unsuccessful. That's what it is. But I wish him nothing but the best. And I think that he's got a bright future at Fox, to be honest with you. I really, really do. Anyway, coming up, the latest edition of the Dream Team tips off in Paris on Sunday against Nikola Jokic in Serbia. Will this be a problem for the red, white, and blue? That, Skip Bayless, Charles Barkley, all of that's coming up later on in the show. But not before my man Brian Windhorst shows up to tell us what's going on with Team USA. Stick around. You're listening to the Stephen A. Smith Show over the iHeartRadio airwaves, and of course watching it over the digital airwaves of YouTube. Back with more in a minute. It's no secret that I live and breathe sports and that I need to be a part of all the action. But how do I do that exactly? It's easy. I use PrizePicks, America's #1 fantasy sports app, to help turn my sports knowledge into some big-time money. In case you haven't heard, PrizePicks is a daily fantasy app where you choose 2, 3, or even up to 6 of your favorite players and then simply pick more or less on their projected in-game stats. It honestly takes less time than it does for Angel Reese to pull down a big rebound and then put it back in for the game-winning bucket. So download the PrizePicks app today and join a community of more than 3 million members. And if you do, PrizePicks will match your first-time deposit of up to $100. Just go to prizepicks.com right now and use code SAS. My initials, of course, in case you didn't figure that out. And use promo code SAS on PrizePicks to receive a first deposit match of up to $100. And then let the games begin. PrizePicks. Pick more. Pick less. It's really that easy. It pays to get paid on Cash App. There are a lot of things in life that you care about and want to keep safe, like protecting your kids, your home, and your hard-earned dollars. That's a feeling that you can actually feel really good about. Just like you can feel good about depositing your paycheck on Cash App, knowing you have security features like card lock and transaction alerts, so you never, ever have to worry if your money is safe and or secure. And when your money is safe, you can actually rest easy. With Cash App, instead of worrying about your money, you can spend time checking things off your wish list, like watching your favorite team win the championship, being pampered on a 7-day cruise, going to your class reunion, and actually looking good while doing so. Those things make you feel good, just like you can feel good about depositing your paycheck on Cash App. That's money. That's Cash App. Download Cash App from the App Store or Google Play Store today. Welcome back to the Stephen A. Smith Show right here over the digital airwaves of YouTube and, of course, iHeartRadio. I know you heard me starting off the show talking a little politics because how could we avoid Donald Trump and Kamala Harris? Kamala Harris calling him out. Donald Trump looking like he running for cover, for crying out loud. That's right, I said he looked like he running for cover. But we'll get into that another time, another day, because we've already gotten into that enough. I got to transition to the world of sports and basketball because the Olympics are on the way in Paris. That would be Paris, France, of course. And Team USA, because I'm a basketball lover, is my focal point. Sure, I'm looking forward to track and field. Sure, I'm looking forward to some swimming. Sure, I'm looking forward to those things. But damn it, you understand? I love me some basketball, okay? Track and field, I just want to focus on that as well because I love that. But let me say this about some basketball. Team USA better win. They better win. I don't want to hear about no France. Even if they do have Victor Wembanyama and Rudy Gobert. I don't want to hear about Serbia, even if they do have Nikola Jokic. I don't want to hear about Canada, even if they do have my league MVP, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and that brother Jamal Murray, who's no joke, and a former Nick and R.J. Barrett, and the Hall of Fame pest that is Dylan Brooks. I don't care about all of that. It's Team USA. It's LeBron James. The flag bearer, okay? That LeBron James. 39, looking like 29, busting everybody's living what? It's about Steph Curry. It's about Devin Booker. It's about Drew Holiday. Leave that screen up. I want everybody to see it. It's about Tyrese Halliburton. It's about Anthony Edwards. It's about Jason Tatum, the champion that is Jason Tatum. It's about Kevin Durant, KD Trey, who hasn't played in exhibitions, who's expected back at some point, was one of the greatest Olympians ever. It's about that dude, Anthony Davis. It's about Derek White. It's about Joel Embiid, the one who says he'd be in a GOAT conversation were it not for injuries. And of course, Bam Adebayo. Team USA got a crew. They don't have a team. I get all of that because they ain't accustomed to playing together, but they got a crew. They're so talented, it should be able to make up for the lack of cohesiveness and chemistry. I don't want to hear it. You got to handle your business. You got to handle your business. The question is, how difficult will that be to pull off? And believe it or not, it's not a question for me to answer because while I know my NBA basketball, damn it, I don't know everybody on Serbia. I don't know everybody on France. I don't know everybody on Australia and Germany and Canada. But I know everybody on Team USA. I know the person who does know all of those teams and all of the names on the team and the kind of attributes that they bring to the table. He is my colleague during my daytime job at ESPN. He is an insider, NBA insider extraordinaire. He travels all over the world with Team USA. He's been doing it for the last couple of years or so. I remember when Wembanyama was going to be drafted #1 overall. There was one man that the worldwide leader sent to Paris. And it is my next guest, NBA insider and analyst and senior writer extraordinaire for ESPN, the one and only Brian Windhorst, my colleague for my day job. What's up, buddy? How you doing?
Hey, Stephen A., you're missed over here in Paris. This is your kind of scene, man.
That's what I'm saying. I'm looking at the background, the Eiffel Tower, hoping I'm like this. Wendy, he's moved on up in this world. I haven't been there. I've never been there. But I give it credit where credit is due. It is well deserved. Let's get right into it because I know you're pressed for time with the opening ceremonies and what have you. Brian Windhorst, I got Canada as the #1 threat to knocking off Team USA.
Okay.
I got Canada. I'm looking at, my league MVP, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. They got Jamal Murray. They got R.J. Barrett. They got Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Kelly Olynyk, Nembhard in Indiana. I'm looking at this team, and I'm saying, hey, they got a chance. When you think about Team USA and the #1 threat to them, who do you see?
So, yeah, that's a good pick, Stephen A., because they've got 10 current NBA players on their roster. There's no team in history other than the Americans at past Olympics that have ever had that many NBA players. So, and actually all 12 of their guys have played in the NBA. And you look at them, they're the only team that can compare to the U.S. with their wing play. There's just out in Europe, out in other places in the world, they have big men, they have guards. They don't typically have NBA level wings, and that's why the Canadians have a good chance. I think when the U.S. plays against Canada, they're a little bit more comfortable. They know their players. The teams play similar styles. They don't have to get out of their comfort zone. They're not going to play a FIBA-style game. They're going to play an NBA-style game. So I would think that Canada has the best chance to beat the U.S. head-to-head playing a regular game. But I actually think the team to keep an eye on is Serbia. Serbia has a couple things going for them. Number one, they got Nikola Jokic. Jokic is the best player in the world, best big man in the world, arguably whatever.
Right.
Secondly, they have NBA level guards. They're not star guards, but they have Bogdan Bogdanovic and Vasily Micic. They play in the NBA. Some of these teams have great big men, and they just don't have good guards. Like, that's France's problem. France has Victor Wembanyama and Rudy Gobert. Their guard play just isn't that good. And this is the most important thing. They're going to get potentially 3 shots at them. They played in Abu Dhabi last week. The U.S. blew them out. But
That's right.
I think there was some rope-a-dope going on in that game by Serbia. I can't tell exactly what happened. There was something weird about the way Serbia – they sat 2 of their guys. They sat their second-best big man, and they sat Bogdan Bogdanovic. And then I'm not sure that they played the game necessarily full power, even though Jokic played 3 quarters. So there's something about the game that it seemed weird to me. They are 16-point underdogs. There's 15 or 16-point underdogs to the U.S. on Sunday. I just don't believe that number. I don't think that there are 15 or 16-point difference in their team. but they don't have to win the game in Abu Dhabi. They don't have to win the game on Sunday. They got to win the potential third meeting, which is potentially in the medal round for the medal. It's hard to beat a team in any league at any time 3 times. So I think Serbia they're a serious threat. Nikola Moltenov there, that third guy there, he's a number 1 draft pick. He never came over to the NBA. He was drafted by the Spurs about 7 or 8 years ago. So he's an NBA level player. He just stayed overseas. Serbia is a team that is a dangerous team. Certainly you're right, though, about Canada.
What about France? Because I'm thinking about Wembanyama and Rudy Gobert. I'm thinking about a front line where you can rule out those alley-oops. You ain't going to be throwing alley-oops against Wembanyama and Rudy Gobert. I don't see that happening, and I think it's going to require Team USA to shoot better from the perimeter because of the size France has on its front line, and shooting potentially, or at least sporadically, is a problem for Team USA. What about that notion against France?
Yeah, that's a fair point. So Team USA's only shot 35% on threes in their warm-up games. And remember, the line is closer. It's a foot closer in the corners. It's 3 feet closer at the top of the key. So you'd think their percentages would go up, not down. Also, Team USA they've been playing lineups without a lot of shooting in it. Like, for example, they've been playing Anthony Davis and Bam Adebayo together because they're so good defensively. And that hurts that they don't have, that's not a good shooting lineup. Here's the thing about France. 3 years ago, and the French were ahead of the U.S., I think 7 or 8 points in the gold medal game. The U.S. had to make a comeback to win that. I would have said that France would have been the favorite other than the U.S. here in Paris. Obviously, it's a home game for them. Stephen A., they have not played well over the last year. Last year at the World Cup, they did not qualify for the medal play. They got knocked out in the group stage. Wembanyama didn't play, but still it was not a good sign. They lost 4 times. They played 5 exhibition games before they came here to Paris. They lost 4 of them. So, look, if they're playing at home, you're right. They've got that great size. Maybe that ends up being a real problem for their opponents. But they do not come in here on a good momentum, to be honest with you.
Let me go on to another subject, because I want to know, as you've watched Team USA, what's been the issue with them? Steve Kerr just turned on a different switch and seemed a bit different once he arrived in Paris than he was leading up to the games, going through the exhibition games that he went through in Abu Dhabi and London and Las Vegas and all of that stuff. What's going on? What's his primary concern with Team USA?
Yeah, so I think he doesn't think that they're playing fast enough. Quite frankly, we as a nation, we have no chemistry. And that doesn't mean the players don't like each other. That means that they just haven't played together very long. So when they run half-court offense, it's just not very good. Ant Edwards tends to play isolation basketball. Like I said, we don't always have the best shooting teams out there. Players don't have good feel for how to run 2-man games. I know that some of these guys have played together before, but you just can't throw dudes together in the middle of everything and expect it to all just work out fine. So what Steve Kerr wants them to do is he wants them to play fast so that there's less half-court offense and more transition offense. And that should be easy to do because they're only playing 4 and 5 minute bursts. You don't have to worry about tiring yourself out. He's putting 5 subs in at a time, and those 5 subs are all all-stars. And what's happened, these teams are trying to slow the U.S. down because they do better in the half court defending the U.S. And it's been working against them. And so Steve Kerr, I think, reviewed the film and said, listen, I got to try to inspire these guys. And one of the big tests to me, Stephen A., is going to be on Sunday after Steve Kerr has really called them out publicly for the last couple of days, how they react to Steve Kerr trying to press them. And you know, the way their mindset is coming out against Serbia.
I expected more from Steph Curry from the standpoint that he's the greatest shooter God ever created. I know what he brings to the table. He's still a superstar in this game. And on top of it all, he's being coached by his coach. And, you know, I'm wondering, what is it? Don't get me wrong. It's not, I'm not trying to imply he's played bad. But I certainly expected him to be up there as opposed to LeBron James being the clear face, looking like the best player on the team. We know how important shooting is in Olympic competition. And what's the issue with Steph Curry?
he's just not shot the ball well. He's had a couple of games where he's been 1 of 7 on threes. He did have one great shooting game, which was against Serbia, where he scored 18 points in the first 11 minutes he was on the court. If it was a regular NBA game, he'd have gone for 45 or 50, no doubt. But he just hasn't shot it well. I mean, he's generated open looks. He just hasn't hit them. So obviously he can catch fire. He has talked about muscle memory being a little bit different, shooting the ball from 20 and 22 feet, as opposed to 22 and 24 feet as the 3-point line is in the NBA. But in all honesty, with his skill level as a shooter and the fact that he's been shooting this way for a month or so, that shouldn't be an issue. So he plays with LeBron. They run 2-man action that is extremely hard to guard. There is no reason why they won't generate open shots for him. He's just not getting it done. I would say their whole team, actually, Stephen A., the Team USA's best 3-point shooter so far has been LeBron in terms of percentage. That's shocking because we know he's fine, but he's not a good 3-point shooter, even though he had a very good year this last year. LeBron can't be your number one 3-point shooter in the percentage. You've got Steph out there. You've got Devin Booker out there. You're going to get Kevin Durant back. All that stuff's got to be in play.
Does that highlight how desperately they need Kevin Durant in order to come home with the gold?
I definitely think that they need him. I think that there's this concept that this team is so deep and, everything that they can survive without him. They can survive against Puerto Rico without him. They can survive pool play without him. At the highest level of what's going to be demanded from them, from these top teams, they need Durant. Durant is arguably the greatest Olympian in Team USA history. He's the leading scorer. He averages almost 20 points a game in Olympic games, which is hard. 20 points a game in an Olympic game is kind of like 25, 27 points a game in an NBA game because they're shorter. He's extremely valuable because he can score from all 3 levels, and he's just so hard to guard because he's so big. So, yes, they absolutely need Durant, and Durant is really focused on trying to get back. He's been working really hard. They're just trying to protect him in that calf injury. I do think he's going to be back probably for Serbia if there's no setbacks, but even if he's back in rhythm for the medal round, which is not for another week and a half, that would really be helpful.
Just a couple of questions before I let you get on out of here, because I know you got to go. And thank you so much for talking to me live from Paris, the one and only Brian Windhorst here. I got to ask you this. Looking at this roster, seeing the competition, knowing what you know about Olympic competition, covering it extraordinarily well the way that you have, did Team USA make a mistake by not adding Jaylen Brown to this team?
I don't think so, and let me explain why. Obviously, Jaylen Brown is a better player than Derek White. But when you look at the opponents in this Olympics, the best teams have strong big men and strong guards. There isn't necessarily strong wings. So if they were going to have a 13-player team, even before Kawhi went out, they were going to need another guy who could be really good on guarding the other team's guards. Like, one of the reasons why they won the gold medal in Tokyo the last time around was because Drew Holiday was able to control Patty Mills. Patty Mills was destroying the Olympics, and Drew Holiday shut him down. And so in the Olympics, not in the NBA, not in a vacuum, Jaylen Brown isn't necessarily as valuable as Derek White. I would argue that Drew Holiday was the second most important player for Team USA in Tokyo after Durant. And going into this team, I think Drew Holiday is among the 3 or 4 most important players, and they didn't really have a backup for him. And so when a spot came open, their biggest need was a backup for Drew Holiday. It wasn't necessarily the best wing player available. And that's a nuanced answer. That I'm telling you, that's the way they looked at it. Anybody can say that Jaylen Brown is a better player, and I don't think Derek White would disagree with that. But for the Olympics, for this team, it made sense for them to go with Derek White. They could end up taking a loss and getting burned by a wing player, and they could have egg on their face. It's not an easy decision, but I do understand why they went this way.
Is there a player in the NBA that is not on this team that you believe should have been on this team?
That's a really good question. I mean, if Jaylen Brown had been on this roster, that would have been totally acceptable. I think Kyrie Irving would be the other guy. Kyrie's level of play, he has a history with Team USA. I think Kyrie, would have had a very strong case as well.
The star of this team for these Olympics will be who?
I think there's a chance that it could be Ant Edwards because I just think he's going to be a really scoring machine. But I'm not sure that they're going to trust him at the end of close games just because he doesn't have the reps. And I think they're probably going to put the ball in LeBron and Steph's hands when it really matters. And if they end up in a close game and they win it, it's probably going to be because of LeBron and Steph. So I think Ant Edwards is the guy that I think could be like the breakout player of this Olympic team. But I think if it's going to require a hero, I think it's going to be LeBron or Steph.
Last question for you. If Team USA somehow, some way manages to fail bringing home the gold, because we all believe they're going to, they're the favorites. If they manage to not pull this off, what are we going to say about them? What are we going to say about Team USA? What are we going to say about the NBA players who represented them?
I think Team USA is so talented that they may just win it on talent because that's what they've been doing for the last 20 years. But we don't have a team. We have a collection of players. And I do think there could be a time when we have to pick a team. And what I mean by that is a team that plays together for 3 summers leading into the Olympics. That's what these other teams do. For most of these teams, this is their 3rd consecutive summer playing together. And it may not be the best players, but we may need to pick 12 guys who are going to commit to 3 straight summers who can create a continuity. But that said, they've won the last 4 golds. They win 3 games in the knockout round, it'll be 5 in a row. And if it ain't broke, you don't have to fix it. But where I think Team USA is vulnerable is that their talent edge is diminished, and it puts more of a emphasis on the need for team continuity, and we don't have it. And so I suspect that at some point when we lose the gold medal, whether it's this year, whether it's in 2028 in LA, or whether it's in 2032, but it's going to happen at some point. Right. When we lose the gold medal, the pivot will be to get a 3-year commitment and put together a true national team, not necessarily a all Hall of Fame or All-Star team.
I promise you this is the very last question. You've been covering LeBron James since junior high school. He's achieved everything you could possibly achieve. 4-time league MVP, 4-time champion, all-time leading scorer, all of this other stuff. Now the man is the flag bearer for Team USA, for the men's. He's going to be carrying the American flag. What does that mean? The LeBron James that you know and what he's endured throughout his life, what does it mean to him, and what does it mean to you to have seen him achieve this moment?
The other night in London, he puts on this show. It was the biggest crowd ever to watch a basketball game in England history. And he's 39 years old, and he puts on a show and lights up the entire building and sends everybody home with the memory. His teammates are looking at each other on the bench just in awe because this is what they watched in some cases growing up. And so for him to be at age 39 doing this, still achieving things, he played in his first Olympics in 2004. He's one of the oldest, this flotilla is about to come down the river here behind me. He's one of the oldest people in this entire flotilla of all these thousands of athletes. He's one of the oldest ones, and he's still one of the best. And he's still, wowing people, and he's still, making history. Like this is unheard of. And this is why I always say LeBron's claim to greatness is the longevity, because I believe no one has been this good for this long. And for some people, they reject that argument, and there's no talking them out of it. But LeBron's claim is longevity. It's shown in the NBA, and it is showing on the Olympic stage where he may win medals 20 years apart. Go find the history of athletes in America or anywhere who've won medals 20 years apart, especially in a sport like basketball, where it's not an individual sport, where it's a team sport. It's on the edge of being unheard of. And so he's not the one thing I say, there's not a ceremonial role he's got here. He's got a big role on this team.
I'll close this discussion with you by saying this. I've never budged from Michael Jordan being the best ever. But that's because I go from Michael Jordan as his best, LeBron James at his best, comparing the two like that. If the category of longevity comes into play, I would stand down and easily hand that to LeBron James,
Right.
without
And
question.
and anybody who says their bar for the greatest ever is the highest peak, I think Jordan has it without doubt. When it comes to the breadth of it,
That's where I'm
I
at.
mean, do you prefer the entire Rocky Mountain Range or Mount Everest? I mean, that's a little bit
There you
of
go.
an awkward comparison, but they don't have the tallest mountains in Colorado, but go tell me the views aren't unbelievable and unique. So that's kind of what he's doing, and he keeps adding on to it every year, amazingly.
Proud of you, my man. Keep up the great work. By the way, when can we see you on the Hoop Collective? When can we see that?
Yeah, it's coming out. We have 2 a week right now. I think we're putting out on Tuesdays and Fridays, and we'll be doing it. We're doing it live from here
Okay.
in Paris, and things are, it's been quite a journey with this team. I've been on 3 continents covering this team so far. It's amazing to be out there covering, LeBron and Steph and Durant and Embiid and Jason Tatum and all these guys. Like, even the coaching staff. You got Spoelstra and Ty Lue and Steve Kerr. Like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna watch all these guys go in the Hall of Fame, and so it's an incredible experience. This is in Olympics in Paris. It's a pretty special moment, and I think everybody understands that. And that's what Steve Kerr's trying to get him to do, Stephen A, is to understand the moment. And I certainly do. I certainly understand how big this moment is. We're about to start a real special time.
I'll be watching, man, and I will definitely be watching you. Proud of you. Keep up the great work, my man. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule in Paris, of all places, for
Have a
the
great
Olympics,
weekend.
man. Thank you so much, Wendy. You take care of yourself. We'll talk soon. You do the
Bye-bye.
same. You heard him, the one and only Brian Windhorst right here. I can't dispute it. If you're talking longevity, and I'm glad he brought that up, because Mount Everest compared to that long Rocky Mountain Road. No, I'm not the Rocky Mountain Road. I'm about Mount Everest. And to me, for Mount Everest, when you look at Michael Jordan and LeBron James, I'm going with Michael Jordan all day, every day. But if you talk about longevity, there's no question that LeBron James, he's first. He's first. Nobody has done. We haven't seen this. Okay, this is something special to behold. And I'm not going to take that away from him. Happy that he's going to be the flag bearer. Happy that he's representing Team USA. Don't think he should be the best player on Team USA, but he's playing ball. He's balling out. Let's see what he does as the Olympic Games get set to begin, and whether or not Steph Curry and the rest of the crew going to step up and join him. Anyway, thanks again to the one and only Brian Windhorst right here on the Stephen A. Smith Show over the digital airwaves of YouTube and, of course, iHeartRadio. Up next, got to talk about Charles Barkley and his statement against the National Basketball Association. Damn. Got to touch on that. And, of course, Skip Bayless. He's making news again. He had something to say, and I'll comment on that as well. So stick around. There's a lot to get into. I'm not finished. This is the Stephen A. Smith Show on YouTube and, of course, iHeartRadio. Back with more in a minute. Welcome back to the Stephen A. Smith Show right here over the digital airwaves of YouTube. I wanted to share a statement from my buddy Charles Barkley, his reaction to the likelihood TNT will lose the NBA after this upcoming NBA season. The NBA's TV deals with ESPN and ABC, NBC, and Amazon likely mean the end of the iconic Inside the NBA show. And this is how Charles Barkley is feeling about that. Quote, clearly the NBA has wanted to break up with us from the beginning. I'm not sure TNT ever had a chance, Barkley said. TNT matched the money, but the league knows Amazon and these tech companies are the only ones willing to pay for the rights when they double in the future. The NBA didn't want to piss them off. It's a sad day when owners and commissioners choose money over the fans. It just sucks. I just want to thank everyone who has been at Turner for the last 24 years, Barkley said. They are the best people and the most talented, and they deserve better. I also want to thank the NBA and its fans, the best fans in sports. We're going to give you everything we have next season, end quote. Charles Barkley and the Inside the NBA team, those are my brothers, those are my friends. I love them dearly, and I wish them nothing but the best. But to quote Charles Barkley, he wasn't really concerned about himself, Shaq, Kenny, or Ernie. It's the people that work behind the scenes, wondering what their lives are going to be like once the NBA is no longer a part of the TNT family. People that he's worked with for 24 years, that he's come to know and love dearly. They've had children, they've gotten married, and all of these different kind of things have transpired, and his sensitivity is towards them, which is incredibly admirable. And if you know anything about Charles Barkley, he's got a heart of gold. He's got one of the biggest hearts you could ever imagine. What a beautiful, beautiful brother he is. But that don't make him correct. And in this instance, based on that quote that he put out, that statement that he put out, it's not telling the whole story. The fact of the matter is you can't sit up there and say that the NBA didn't want this from the beginning. I told y'all a few days ago, my sources told me that Adam Silver and the NBA talked to the leadership at TNT and Warner Brothers Discovery, led by, Mr. Zaslav. And they knew what the situation was and what they needed to do in order to keep their NBA rights. And there was a lot of hemming and hawing going on. I can't get too specific because I don't know all the details, and I don't want to be irresponsible here, but it wasn't some situation where they got backdoored. It was clearly obvious what was transpiring. We saw Amazon get into the NFL game. We know they want to get into the NBA game. They want to build their sports cachet. Their market cap numbers at about $3 trillion. When Warner Brothers Discovery, along with Disney, along with Fox, is at about $400 billion. This is business. And so you know that, and you saw the handwriting on the wall, but you had an opportunity to match, and evidently it wasn't a priority. How do we know this? Because Charles Barkley called out the honchos at TNT. He talked about their unwillingness to prioritize accordingly. He spoke adamantly against TNT leadership. Or if not TNT leadership, Warner Brothers Discovery. Charles Barkley did that. He was the one that told the world folks were dropping the ball. He was the one that told the world folks weren't on their game when it came to doing everything they could to keep the rights over at TNT. That was Charles Barkley who said that. Now it's the NBA's fault? The NBA is a business. The players are about their business. They're about getting paid. Coaches are about getting paid. Steve Kerr getting $17 million a year. Popovich getting $17 million a year. Eric Spoelstra's over $15 million a year. Ty Lue's over $14 million a year. Monty Williams is over $13 million a year before he got let go by the Detroit Pistons. I mean, what are we talking about here? There's money everywhere. And people who are participating and contributing to the coffers of the sport are going to look to get paid. Of course, the owner's going to be first in line. They're the ones cutting the checks. And billionaires live by different codes. We get all of that. But so do the leagues. You think the NFL are giving people bargains? They're looking to profit as much as they possibly can with all the money that they're making. I remember years ago with Colin Kaepernick and everybody, the owners were complaining, oh my God, what's going to happen? You know what? He is a distraction to the sport. He's got to go. It was the same year each owner pocketed $246 million apiece just to put in their pocket from the TV rights deal. And they were worried about Colin Kaepernick costing them $1. This is who they are, fair enough. But the league is a cash cow if you're the NFL. And now here we are talking about the NBA. You think they just want to sit idly by and watch the NFL make all the money? An 11-year, $76 billion deal pays players, pays coaches, pays all the personnel that works under the NBA umbrella, pays people who work for those networks airing the NBA product. That is ABC and ESPN, which is Walt Disney. It is NBC, which is also Peacock. It's Amazon. Here they come. Everybody been talking about linear television is dying, right? Even though I would beg to differ. TV, maybe, but not linear content over the digital airwaves, but that's a different story for another day. The fact of the matter is, in the end, everybody's looking to get paid. Everybody's trying to get paid. And those people at TNT are incredibly talented. Incredibly talented. And if you are Amazon, if you are ESPN ABC, if you are NBC and what have you, look at them. There's a lot of talent to pluck from that tree. They know what they're doing over there. Fair enough. But the gloom and doom and all of this other stuff, and because of money, Charles Barkley, you're getting paid, my brother. Well. So is Shaq. So is Ernie and Kenny, not in anybody's pocket, and certainly not questioning that you deserve it. Y'all are my boys. I love you. You know that. And you deserve it. But none of us are doing this for free. Hell, I own and operate this YouTube channel. I ain't doing it for free. I'm on iHeartRadio. It ain't for free. I work on ESPN First Take an NBA Countdown. It ain't for free. Everybody trying to get paid. I can't fault the leagues for doing the same. At some point in time, we got to grow up and start and throw emotions to the wayside. Everybody and their grandmama knew this was coming down the road. If you're David Zasloff and those brothers, you got to do everything that you can to ingratiate yourself with the NBA and Adam Silver, to do everything that you can to keep the rights over at TNT. That wasn't a priority a couple of years ago. It might have been now. When they tried to match and the NBA said, no, it's not a match and we're going to go with this Amazon deal. And now we're expecting a lawsuit battle between the two parties that'll probably reach a settlement at some point. But in the end, what it comes down to is everybody knew it was coming. Everybody knew it was coming. I'm sensitive to what Charles Barkley is saying. I don't want anybody unemployed, especially from a top-notch production like TNT did with Inside the NBA. First class all the way. The standard, the creme de la creme, no doubt. My favorite moment outside of Charles Barkley having Shaq choke on himself with laughter because he's talking about them big women in San Antonio. Outside of that, okay, my favorite moment was when Shaq was introduced to the world as the new member of the TNT team. When he was sitting there doing that commercial, Tweedledee and Tweedledum, look out, baby, because here I come. Yeah, I loved it. Get ready, here I come, get ready. Oh, get ready, baby. Remember that? Shaq was doing his thing. I loved it. I always tell him that. TNT is the show special. And it's can't miss television, and it's going to be that way this season. And the talent that's over there, I respect where Barkley's coming from. My brother, what I would tell you is believe in that talent over there. Because as great as they are, they're going to land on their feet because they're that great. But let's not look at the NBA and lament that they're going for money when we getting paid what we get paid. Charles Barkley been telling people for years, you got the best job in the world. You don't even consider it a job. You stealing money. You said all of these things. You've lamented the fact that, you know, there's police officers and firefighters and doctors and nurses and teachers and everybody else that don't get paid what you get paid. You still got paid. Still took the money. That's all I'm saying. I can't look at a business and fault them for conducting business. The NBA is big time. It's a global iconic brand. The best players in the world representing the United States of America are in Paris right now. Oh, by the way, a few of them are on Team France. A few of them are on Team Serbia. Few of them, many of them are on Team Canada. Got one in Greece. Got somebody for Australia. Germany, I think. I get where Charles Barkley's coming from. I truly, truly do. But come on, bro. You can't fault a business for doing business. Now, if they're keeping the money for themselves and they ain't spreading the wealth, they ain't hiring anybody, and they ain't patronizing folks so you can fuel the economy and make sure you put money in other people's pockets, I get that. There's thousands of employees with the NBA. It's thousands more who who benefit from the NBA product, if not millions. Because events fuel the economy and stirs the cup. Restaurants, hotels, travel, etc. It's not gloom and doom. It's just another avenue to be explored. And in this case, by people over at TNT who happen to be great. Not only may they land on their feet, they might get a better opportunity than the one they had at TNT. And that was a pretty damn good one. Who's to say? Let's see. Let's see. Now, moving on. Last week, I shared my thoughts on the news that my buddy and former colleague Skip Bayless will be parting ways with FS1 and Undisputed. This week, Skip is back in the headlines again while discussing Joel Embiid claiming he's the most hated player in the NBA during an appearance on, quote, the Check Ball Show, end quote. Skip proclaimed that he is the most hated man in all of sports media. Some people might look at that and say that Skip's trying to get attention for himself or whatever, and I don't think so. I think that Skip is somebody that says what he means and means what he says. Not always right, not always wrong, but I think he means what he says. In terms of being hated, I don't think Skip cares. Matter of fact, in some instances, I think he takes it as a badge of honor. But I'm going to tell you something that all of us should appreciate about Skip Bayless. You know, one of the things that so many folks miss, especially in this day and age, and it's one of the things that I will openly confess pisses me the hell off. You know, when elder statesmen talk about respecting your elders and stuff like that, you're talking about respecting people who paved the way, because you know something, if they didn't do it, not only would you not have known what to do, you might not have ever been able to do it. They are pioneers in everything. And in the world of sports, which we primarily cover, Connie Hawkins preceded Dr. J. Dr. J preceded Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan preceded Vince Carter and Kobe Bryant. I go back to the days of shooters where, you know, Mad Dog Russo will bring up Sam Jones and folks like Jerry West, and we saw stuff like that. And I started watching it, and it was downtown Freddie Brown for the Seattle Supersonics and the Dale Ellises of the world and Ricky Pierces of the world and so many others. Larry Bird came along, and he was a sharpshooter and all of this other stuff. And we see the Allen Houstons of the world, the Reggie Millers of the world, the Ray Allens of the world. We saw so many long-range shooters, but then Steph Curry and Klay Thompson came along, and we saw something special. And we saw a little bit something different from them, because they weren't just catching and shooting, especially in this case of Steph Curry, movement without the basketball. That was Reggie Miller, sure, but Steph Curry's ability to shoot from anywhere. The range was unlimited. His ball handling skills and an ability to create his own shot and what have you, all of those things came into play. Guess what? That's how it goes. There's always pioneers. And when we look at the world of podcasting and sports talk and what have you, Skip Bayless is one of the pioneers. And let me tell you about something that I know for a fact better than anybody. So many people paid too much attention, wondering and lamenting what he said. The hating on LeBron James, the love affair with Tim Tebow, and his fixation on the Cowboys in a positive way, where I'm the troll, and all of this other stuff. You know what you miss? If he didn't do what he did, how would we have been able to do what we do? Think about the subjects we tackled. Think about the matters we pontificated about. Think about the sensitive issues that were broadcast over the national airwaves. Think about how polarizing they were. Think about disenfranchised communities and other minorities within this country salivating for opportunities to have a voice and to make sure their voices were heard. Think about the things that people say and do now. If a white older guy like Skip Bayless wasn't willing to take the positions that he took while inviting people to sit opposite of him and challenge him on so many different issues, would debate television be what it is? See, a lot of times we get caught up in thinking about what that person's saying. Sometimes it's the platform they provide. Do you know that there isn't a week that goes by where there's something that I could say, but I know coming from me, it won't work. It'll be taken wrong. It might be taken differently than I wanted absorbed. So I might leave it to the person I'm debating with. I might leave it to one of the football analysts. I might leave it to one of the basketball analysts. I might leave it to one of the pundits out there, political, social justice, social commentary, or whatever. Or the female issues, Shanae Ogumake, Andrea Carter, and Monica McNutt, and Molly Kiram, and all of these other folks. Why? Because there's certain things that don't need to come out of my mouth. But I have an obligation to provide the platform for it to come out of the mouth of others. At least a part of that was Skip Bayless. At least a part of that. So while we sit here and we talk about him and act like, oh my God, he's getting ready to leave FS1, so he has failed, even though he's 73 years of age and he's had a successful run that has spanned 4 decades, which most of us could only hope we could ever come close to achieving. I'm saying to you, I'm me. I speak what I speak. I say what I say. That's all true. I've been this way all my life. I didn't have First Take as a national televised platform until 12 years ago. It's not always about the person that's saying something. It's about the person that has the courage and the conscience to provide a platform for others to say what they can't say, what they don't want to say, what they don't feel, what they may feel completely opposite of, and it doesn't bother them. You can think whatever you want about Skip Bayless when it comes to a lot of things he has said and has done over the years, which I've argued and butt heads with him about and didn't agree with him about and what have you. But at least remember that a lot of people have benefited from a platform he helped pioneer. Just try to remember that. Just try to remember that. That's it for this week. For the Stephen A. Smith Show right here over the digital airwaves of YouTube and, of course, iHeartRadio. I got to get on out of here. I hope y'all enjoy y'all weekend. I'm going to make sure I do the same. Until next time, peace and love, everybody. Be safe. God bless.